Trump is the closest thing to God.
I don't think there's anything going to get me in heaven. Okay, I think I'm not maybe heaven bound. I think I'm not maybe heaven bound. This one, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to make heaven.
He did not hate his opponents. He wanted the best for them. That's where I disagreed with Charlie. I hate my opponent, and I don't want the best for them. I'm sorry. I hate my opponent.
Trump is the closest thing to God.
What do you want to call him? Give me a name. Give me a
white
name.
Supremacists and
white like me to condemn?
White supremacists and right
Proud Boys. Stand back and stand by. But I'll tell you what.
Started this gang called the Proud Boys.
We will kill you. That's the Proud Boys in a nutshell. We will kill you. We look nice. We seem soft. We have boys in our name. But like Bill the Butcher and the Bowery Boys, we will assassinate you. Now, part of the reason I agree to do the talk is because I'm allowed to bring all my guys. And we can fight our way in and fight our way out. I think it's our job to do it. And the cops just turn a blind eye. If you're wearing a MAGA hat, as Sal is right now. Sal's in the studio, folks.
Oh my God, it's Sal Cipolla. Where are you from?
On here.
Wow, you came a long way.
You're wearing a MAGA hat, and some guy with a slightly punk demeanor comes up to you and says, "Hey, are you Sal or are you pro-Trump?" Choke him. Trust your instincts. Don't listen to what he has to say. Choke him.
Excuse me, they didn't put themselves down as you, and you had some very bad people in that group. But you also had people that were very fine people on both sides. You had people in that group, excuse me.
Hate on parade, followed by racial violence that disgusted the entire nation. Tonight, 4 California men face federal charges for an infamous white supremacist rally that left a woman dead. The nation watched in horror as white supremacists marched in Virginia last year. The president refused to condemn them initially.
Very fine people on both sides. You had people in that group, excuse me. I saw the same pictures as you did. You had people in that group that were there to protest the taking down of, to them, a very, very important statue and the renaming of a park from Robert E. Lee to another name.
Here's something else we can see in the meantime. A rare Civil War era photograph of slaves owned by General Robert E. Lee. Well, it's now being preserved by the National Park Service at Lee's Arlington House.
And as Mike Canine reports today, it was recently discovered thanks to the keen eye of a local volunteer.
Photographs of slaves from the Civil War era are very rare, but incredibly, a second photo of this woman, Selena Gray, was recently discovered by a National Park Service volunteer, up for auction on eBay for just $20. On the back, a handwritten inscription reads, "General Lee's slaves, Arlington, VA. General Lee's slaves, Arlington, VA."
If slavery never happened, then you would be in a grass hut.
Yeah.
Right? Well, we need reparations. Your reparations are that you get to live in America. You're welcome. You're welcome.
You get to have the Christian religion.
That's
live
right.
better than your ancestors.
The greatest moment in history for any brown or black country is the moment that the white man's ships arrive on your shore.
Better than your ancestors.
The greatest moment in history for any brown or black country is the moment that the white man's ships arrive on your shore.
Before boarding the ships at African port cities, enslaved people were stripped of their clothing and remaining possessions and had their heads forcibly shaved. During boarding, which could take weeks or even months, enslaved people lived on the deck of the ship in a temporary wooden house constructed by the crew. The crew also installed netting around the deck of the ship, designed to catch those enslaved who might opt for death over forced servitude. Once moved below deck, enslaved people would find themselves stuffed into compartments with ceilings as low as 4.5 feet, where they would spend most of their voyage. They were segregated by gender and age. Adult men were kept separately and shackled in pairs. Women usually left unchained in their designated compartment, and children often free to move about the ship. There were no sanitary facilities of any kind. Enslaved people were forced to relieve themselves where they sat, creating hellish conditions when combined with the heat and lack of ventilation below deck. Disease was rampant. Dysentery, malaria, yellow fever, smallpox, measles, and influenza ravaged the enslaved and crew members alike. The enslaved people generally spent about 8 hours a day above deck, but were still separated by gender, with a barricado, a reinforced wall that could be used to protect crew members in case of a revolt. Enslaved people were also subject to forced exercise, which sometimes included dance and song for the entertainment of the crew. Enslaved captives deemed disobedient were tortured and beaten, usually whipped with the especially cruel cat-o'-nine tails, a tool designed to inflict maximum pain. Enslaved people who refused to eat their typical meal of rice and beans were forced to do so, sometimes with a speculum oris, a medieval tool used to force open a person's mouth. Women, while usually left unshackled, were raped and sexually abused by members of the crew, sometimes arriving in the New World carrying the children of their attackers. But it was the women, using their minuscule freedoms, who would often coordinate mutinies against their captors. But these rebellions were rarely successful. The true extent of the horrors of the Middle Passage came to light in a 1783 court trial over the slave ship Zong. The Zong left present-day Ghana in August of 1781 with 442 enslaved on board. After a 2-month journey riddled with navigation errors, 62 enslaved people and 7 crew members had perished without reaching their destination. Disease was spreading throughout the ship, and fresh water was running dangerously low. Captain Luke Collingwood was afraid of the financial cost of more deaths. Enslaved people that died of disease were not covered by the ship's insurance, but the enslaved who drowned were. Collingwood ordered approximately 130 enslaved people thrown overboard. He claimed it was necessary to do so to halt the spread of disease.
The institution of slavery is not inherently evil. I know. Some of you guys are upset by that. Some of you guys are saying, I've been saying that for years. Okay, I'll take it a step further. It is not inherently evil to own another human being. I know. Just wait. Some of you guys are really upset, but let's talk through this because it is very important that every Christian affirm what I just said. And not only should they affirm it, every Christian in today's society should be able to defend what I just said.
Ever heard of a group of enslaved Africans who chose the sea over shackles? This is the unbelievable story of Igbo landing. In 1803, a group of enslaved Igbo revolted, seized control of their slave ship, and grounded it on St. Simon's Island, Georgia. But what happened next is what makes this story truly extraordinary. Rather than submit to a life of slavery, they made a decision that shocked the world. Marching in unison, singing in their native Igbo, they walked into the water, choosing to drown rather than live. They walked into the water, choosing to drown rather than live in chains.
The institution of slavery is not inherently evil. Every Christian in today's society should be able to defend what I just said.
Okay. I wish all physical and emotional wounds could be healed with I wish you could pass the Physical and Emotional Wound Healing Act of 2025 and everybody would just feel better. But it doesn't work that way. And especially in this case, because there is nothing to heal. Yes, Ayanna Pressley, you should just get over it. Yeah, you need to get over slavery. You do. Yeah, you need to get over slavery. You do.
Ever since America came into existence, they have been unmerciful, not just to black people, but to people all across the world. They was the first to drop a nuclear bomb on civilians. The national anthem of America even testifies to this. In the Star-Spangled Banner, stanza 3, it says, "No refugee can save the hireling and slave from the terror of flight or the gloom of the grave." So this so-called Christian nation believed that black people should remain as slaves forever.
Available in color. The many surviving examples of such postcards tell a horrendous story. They were meant to address the people willing to use the lives of black children to collect a prized commodity, alligator skin. The white hunters were using human blood and flesh to lure monstrous crocodiles and alligators. To prepare for the activity, it is said that some white people kidnapped black children, tied them to a string, and dropped them in the swamps. Others would get groups of children and order them to stay over the alligator swamp, near the open mouths of hungry alligators. These children were fed to the predators whole. This is a documented event that can also be seen in old artifacts, such as product packaging and knickknacks. Here is a classic example of household ornaments that were sold in areas where alligator baits were deemed a tourist attraction. At the time, the shelves in stores were covered with these decorative objects. These antiques come in bold colors and highly intricate designs that don't shy away from America's brutal past. Many of these trinkets are displayed in the Jim Crow Museum of Racist Imagery.
Let's just talk about your take on these new standards and the one sentence that's received the most backlash. I'll just read it to you. Instruction includes how slaves develop skills, which in some instances could be applied for their personal benefit. So let's just be clear. You believe this is an important topic that should be taught in schools?
So that means they develop skills in spite of slavery, not because of slavery. It was them showing resourcefulness and then using those skills. If this was a different state and the governor wasn't running for president, no one would have said anything about that.
Well, I think you're right. If you weren't running for office, this wouldn't be in the spotlight. But you've also put education in the spotlight, rightfully so, because it's an important issue. But to your point that there are similar standards in the AP African American Studies course, I think the issue people take with is the word benefit and the overall framing of the Florida standards where, looking at the AP course versus yours, the word enslaver appears dozens of times in the AP course. It doesn't appear once in your standards. And the criticism that I've seen beyond just that one sentence is the general framing of a slightly more positive light.
No, that's not true. I mean, there's all the gory details are in all of those standards. And we've made African American history a priority, and we're going to continue to do that. But we are going to speak the truth, and we're going to fight back.
Cause of the United States Civil War.
Well, don't come with an easy question or anything. I mean, I think the cause of the Civil War was basically how government was going to run, the freedoms and what people could and couldn't do.
Thank you. And in the year 2023, it's astonishing to me that you answer that question without mentioning the word slavery.
What do you want me to say about slavery? Next question.
And this mentality is the reason why black people were oppressed for 400 years in America. They don't want to admit the truth that America committed crimes against humanity. They would also like us to believe that the abolishment of slavery was the end of black people's oppression in America. That is not true. It only got worse after slavery. They used propaganda in books and film to convince the white American public that black people were their enemies and that they should avoid being around these people at all costs. This led to segregation and the deaths of many innocent black men who were accused of being beasts who only want to rape white women. For years, this propaganda allowed white mobs to get away with committing crimes against free black people.
In Natchez, Mississippi in the 1800s. I don't know the correct date, but I know it was during the 1800s when a lot of plantation slaves was free. And they overrun Natchez, Mississippi. So the Union Army, under the leadership and the slaughter of Captain John Mason, round all the slaves up, put them down in this located area and put walls up around. Took all the men, took the women and children and separate them. 20,000 lost soul family, mostly women and children, died right there in Natchez, Mississippi, in this wilderness of peach trees that nobody don't go down there and eat right now.
As you can see, the United States government itself were active participants in the oppression of black people during these 400 years.
The United States created a law to protect the rights of previously enslaved African Americans. But the Jim Crow laws were specifically designed to undermine and disregard these rights. From the 1870s to the 1960s, Jim Crow laws enforced a cruel racial hierarchy in the southern states. These laws deliberately bypassed the protections established after the Civil War, including the 15th Amendment, which granted black men the right to vote 150 years ago. These discriminatory laws stripped black people of their rights, subjected them to public humiliation, and perpetuated their economic and educational marginalization. Anyone who challenged this social order faced ridicule, harassment, and even violence. The term Jim Crow originated in the 1820s when a white comedian named Thomas Rice created a character named Jim Crow. This stereotypical character became a common feature in minstrel shows and was also used as a derogatory nickname for black people. After the Civil War, the 13th Amendment officially ended slavery. However, white Americans in the former Confederacy opposed it.
This is the part of history that they don't like to acknowledge. They would like us to believe that after the Civil War, black people had no more problems in this country. This is far from the truth.
Your clarification on one thing within the policy. It says instruction includes how slaves develop skills which in some instances could be applied for their personal benefit. Could you just explain why?
Well, you should talk to them about it. I mean, I didn't do it, and I wasn't involved in it. But I think what they're doing is I think that they're probably going to show some of the folks that eventually parlayed, being a blacksmith into doing things later in life. But the reality is all of that is rooted in whatever is factual. They listed everything out. And if you have any questions about it, just ask the Department of Education. You can talk about those folks. But I mean, these were scholars who put that together. It was not anything that was done politically.
During the Jim Crow era, black people were still being lynched in the South. Those who protested peacefully were still being attacked and brutalized by white society. This also was still the time of segregation, so black people weren't allowed to use white establishments. This was all but 60 years ago, but somehow today they pretend like none of this ever happened.
White people generally are the least racist people on earth. I mean that in a very technical way. There have been studies of racial consciousness. White people have the lowest racial consciousness by a country mile. Every other race of people has a much higher racial consciousness, a much higher in-group preference. White people just are not racist. You can say whatever you want about white people. You can say they have bad taste in music, their food isn't spicy enough, but you can't say they're racist.
So Michael Knowles said that white people are not racist. I assume what he meant by that is that white people are exempt from showing racism. And he makes it seem as if other people, other nationalities, other races are the ones who are more racist than white people. Yet, if you search up who invented the concept of race and racism, AI would tell you that it was created by white Europeans in the early modern period to justify colonialism, slavery, and exploitation. However, it does acknowledge that before this, different groups were prejudiced against each other. But this was based on culture, religion, or geography, rather than the modern notion of fixed biological racial hierarchies, which Michael Knowles often talks about. All that they talk about is race mixed with their religion.
Let's bring in our friend here, Dustin Tavella, who is a magician, who performed the most impressive trick of the year, maybe of the last 10 years. It's not that he pulled a rabbit out of a hat. It's not that he sawed a lady in half. Dustin managed to win a network television game show as a straight white Christian man. I don't know. I didn't think that was possible in our day and age. Apparently it is. Dustin, thank you.
By the end of this video, you're going to see that Christian nationalism is simply just that. It's white superiority mixed with the Christian religion, but the two don't go together. The gospel is not based upon race. Now, I also Googled who created racism first. Who were the first people to practice racism? And once again, it's white Europeans who adopted it in the early modern era. Before this, it did not exist.
White people just are not racist.
Right. Slavery wasn't about race either because no one had thought up race yet. So who did? I put that question to another leading historian, Ibram Kendi. I didn't expect he would answer the question in the form of one person's name and a date, as if we were talking about the light bulb. But he did. He said in his exhaustive research, he found what he believed to be the first articulation of racist ideas. And he named the culprit. This guy should be more famous or infamous. His name is Gomes de Zurara. Portuguese man, wrote a book in the 1450s in which he did something that no one had ever done before, according to Dr. Kendi. He lumped together all of the people of Africa, vast, diverse continent, and he described them as a distinct group, inferior and beastly. Never mind that in that pre-colonial time, some of the most sophisticated cultures in the world were in Africa. Why would this guy make this claim? Turns out it helps to follow the money. First of all, Zurara was hired to write that book by the Portuguese king. And just a few years before, slave traders, here we go, slave traders tied to the Portuguese crown had effectively pioneered the Atlantic slave trade. They were the first Europeans to sail directly to sub-Saharan Africa to kidnap and enslave African people.
So the origins of racism, which is a modern-day concept, was practiced by Europeans in the 15th and 16th centuries, and it was used in the justification of colonialism as well as the transatlantic slave trade.
Shows they were actually better in the 1940s. It was bad, it was evil, but what happened? Something changed. They committed less crimes.
Maybe they were afraid. I mean, 4,000 Black men, women, and children were killed in violent lynch mobs.
If that's your explanation, but I guess
racial terror permeated American culture for hundreds of years.
Black America is worse than it has been
that
in the last
affected
80 years.
the generational psyche of an entire group of people?
Well, I'm sure it did. I'm not discounting that.
I just want you to keep in mind that these are Christians who are saying these things. They are justifying slavery. They are justifying racism. He just said that things were better for black people in the 1940s than it is today, a time period where black people were still being lynched and burned to death, as well as murdered in cruel and inhumane ways, while crowds of white mobs surrounded them and watched in amusement. Black people at that time did not have rights to vote, nor did they have justice. They were lied on and often killed for no reasons at all. Their businesses were burned down for no reasons at all, yet things were better for black people in the 40s.
We generally call it the catastrophe because we feel like it wasn't a riot. We were not the perpetrators, we were the victims. But it took 80 years to get the state of Oklahoma to acknowledge that.
The Tulsa Race Massacre is believed to be one of the worst incidents of racial violence in American history. From May 31st to June 1st in 1921, as many as 300 people were killed, hundreds were injured, and thousands of buildings were destroyed.
On June 1st, they began to systematically destroy neighborhoods, and they had airplanes dropping things down on people's houses, and they had made up their minds to clear the entire area of black people.
It started after a newspaper reported a black man tried to sexually assault a white woman. Though it's still uncertain what exactly happened, many did not believe that story.
This weekend, people from around the world came together in Mississippi to mark 70 years since the murder of Emmett Till. In late August of 1955, Till and his cousin Reverend Wheeler Parker Jr. took the train from Chicago to Mississippi. What happened next is a dark chapter in American history. A mob of racists lynched and shot the 14-year-old. This past week, the 86-year-old Reverend, who is the only living witness to Till's kidnapping, took the very same train ride to Mississippi, and our Steve Osinsami and team were there with the Reverend as he relived that painful and deeply personal journey.
Do you forgive Mississippi? Do you forgive America for what happened? Do you forgive those people?
If you don't forgive, God ain't forgiving you. Vengeance belongs to God, and you got to believe that. Vengeance belongs to God, and you got to believe that.
Because it makes you feel uncomfortable doesn't mean it has to change. You know, I mean,
Jesus was a white man too, but you know, it's like he was a historical figure. I mean, that's a verifiable fact, as is Santa. I just want the kids watching to know that. Jesus was a white man too.
You see, this Christian nationalist movement has what we call a white supremacist problem. And whenever it's brought up, they brush it off. They are not going out correcting these people for their ignorance.
Condemning the hateful rhetoric.
Disgusting. If they have government jobs, they should be fired. It's reprehensible.
Vice President J.D. Vance today downplaying the messages.
I really don't want us to grow up in a country where a kid telling a stupid joke, telling a very offensive stupid joke, is cause to ruin their lives. And we're not canceling kids because they do something stupid in a group chat.
They are not showing them what the gospel says and how they are walking in opposition to what's said. Instead, they ignore the white supremacist mindset that they have. And this is a problem. How are you going to be evangelizing people from other races if you believe that you are superior to them, that you are better than them?
Something remarkable and powerful is happening to this country right now, the likes of which our generation has never seen. A true spiritual revival, an awakening is happening to America because of Charlie Kirk, and it's something that Charlie predicted.
They're not leading people to Christ, they're leading people away from Christ.
Lunch and breakfast.
Good.
I have a question. Are you Christian?
I am Christian.
So it's very, very Christian to give massive tax breaks to millionaires and billionaires to the tunes of trillions.
Yes, it is.
While cutting free school lunch and breakfast from children in the context of school systems. To the degree of 420,000 children on average every single month. Very Christian, right? Tell me, where in the Bible does it tell you to do that?
I don't know. Where in the Bible does it say school lunch?
I don't know. Maybe the part where, like, literally God spawned in manna from heaven, right? And gave it to people for free. I don't know. Maybe then.
Maybe it will put their parents to work to do.
I mean, do you remember that? I mean, did that not happen in the Bible? Did Jesus not teach you to, like, love thy neighbor and to, like, feed the poor?
I had to walk out of church today over comments about Charlie Kirk. I'm on the verge of tears sitting in this parking lot because I'm having such a complex with my faith. Because I genuinely don't understand how Christians are pushing this man as though hate didn't come out of his mouth and heart on a consistent basis.
In Galatians chapter 5, verse 19 to 21, it says, "The works of the flesh are manifest, which are these: adultery, fornication, uncleanness," and then there's idolatry, witchcraft, hatred, variance, emulations, wrath, strife, seditions, heresies, envyings, murders, drunkenness, revellings, and such like, of which I tell you before, as I have also told you in time past, that they which do such things shall not inherit the kingdom of God. So the problem with Christian nationalists in America is they'll call everybody else out for those sins except for the ones that they themselves are committing, such as hatred. That is hateful to say that other people should be glad that they went through slavery. And the Bible says that those who act as such, who live in the flesh and make it about the flesh, that is white supremacy, they are not going to inherit the kingdom of God, because it is not about that. It is about the spirit. It is about what is inside of you. That's why it says the fruit of the spirit, not flesh, the fruit of the spirit is love, joy, peace, long-suffering, gentleness, goodness, and faith. It is not about our flesh. When you tie your faith in with nationalism, that's what it becomes. You become carnal-minded. You worry more about the flesh than the spirit. You focus on earthly things. you start to care more about saving this nation more than you do about the ushering in of the kingdom of Jesus, of Yahshua HaMashiach.
Like, you want to go thought crime? Like, I'm sorry, if I see a black pilot, I'm going to be like, boy, I hope he's qualified.
Well, that's the you wouldn't have done that. You wouldn't have. You wouldn't have done that before.
That's not an immediate.
No, you wouldn't have done that before.
That's not who I am. That's not what I believe.
It is the reality the left has created.
Because of DEI, it begs the question: when you see a black pilot, you wonder. You say, "I hope they are qualified." I wouldn't think that if the CEO of United or these airlines would reject DEI and say excellence is the ultimate standard. Is if I'm dealing with somebody in customer service who's a moronic black woman, I wonder, is she there because of her excellence, or is she there because of affirmative action? It almost creates thought patterns that are not necessarily wholesome. It creates resentment, doesn't it, Heather? No one really cares when it's HR managers. No one cared when it was, just kind of paper shufflers or even engineers. But now when it's like, wait, hold on a second. You're going to remove my appendix and you're a black lesbian?
Charlie Kirk has no...
Now, based off the things that he was saying, is he operating in the spirit or is he operating in the flesh? Well, from his own words, he made it clear that he judges other people based off the flesh, first and foremost. He says he does not trust a pilot to keep him safe on the airplane if that pilot is black. And then he talks about how certain people in certain job positions are undeserving because their skin is black. He ties race into the factor rather than is this person as an individual qualified or not. He ties in the flesh. If this person was a white person, then he likely would be more acceptable to it. But since this person in this position is black, it is problematic for him. That is not the fruits of the Spirit. We are to love everyone. We are not to show partiality to anyone or favor to anyone. Everyone is treated equal in the eyes of the Most High. When we all become saved, there is no Jew or Gentile. He sees us as one. Yet, Charlie Kirk, as a Christian, believes that certain people are unequal to those who look like him. And guess what? Those racist people that are a part of this movement would agree with Charlie Kirk. They will be in agreement with each other when we clearly know that that is wrong. That is against what the gospel says. So that's why I say that this Christian nationalist movement in America has a white supremacist problem. And it is not being corrected. Instead, they downplay it. In James chapter 1, verse 22, it says, "Be ye doers of the word, not hearers only, deceiving your own selves." That means we're not just to hear the words, but we have to carry the words out into our daily lives. We can't be double-minded believers. We can't claim to be a part of the faith while doing something that is in opposition to the faith. It all has to come together. That's why it says we will know them by their fruits. We will know them by their deeds and by their works, not just by what they are claiming. What these racist Christians and white supremacists fail to understand is that when their Messiah, the Messiah they claim to believe in, when he ushers in his kingdom on earth, it's not going to be divided by race. There's going to be diversity. There's going to be a mixed multitude. So if they are uncomfortable living alongside those who don't look only like them, then they are going to be uncomfortable in the kingdom of heaven, which they're probably not going to be a part of anyway.
My take on Israel and Israel versus Palestine and all this kind of stuff. And I have given my take, and my take is I don't care that much. So I just don't care that much. I'm not just America first. I'm an American chauvinist in that I only care about my own country. I honestly don't care about other countries. I wish them well. I don't.
They can actually leave and go to where their native land is.
The message is that there is literally no place on earth that white people can claim as a legitimate homeland. A white man is native to nowhere. He is indigenous to nowhere. Try to imagine that you run South Africa. You're in charge of the African National Congress, not exactly an enviable position. Your country has the highest unemployment rate in the entire world since the end of apartheid, which was supposedly the greatest evil to ever befall mankind. A lot of bad things have been happening. The power grid has...
And that I only care about my own country. I honestly don't care about other countries. I wish them well.
Racists will not inherit the kingdom of heaven if they do not repent and change their hearts and minds. It doesn't matter if it's white superiority, black superiority, or Jewish superiority. Nobody should view themselves as superior to any human being. Romans chapter 10 verse 12 says, "For there is no difference between Jew and Gentile. The same God is the God of all of them, and richly blesses all who call on him." Punishment for the sins of our ancestors will not fall upon us unless we follow in their same sins. Deuteronomy chapter 24, verse 16. Parents are not to be put to death for their children, nor children put to death for their parents. Each will die for their own sins. Today, the Most High has given the Gentiles the opportunity to right their wrongs. It doesn't matter if you didn't personally participate in the slave trade and oppression of black and brown people around the world. If you are attempting to rewrite history and to change the perception of what took place, you are just as guilty as your ancestors. Those who have been oppressed are not asking the Gentiles to bow down and worship us. All we wanted was to be treated equally. Proverbs 31, verse 9, "Open your mouth, judge righteously, and plead the cause of the poor and needy." That is all that we ask for. This has never been about reversing racism. The entire concept of racism needs to be destroyed. It is baseless. And it has been the number one reason for all the division and chaos that we see in this world.